Well, hello, good morning, or no, good afternoon, AO National. Welcome to your Tuesday training. My name is Eyad, one of the RGAs. Hope you guys are ready for some more sales tips. Each and every week, we're here Tuesdays and Wednesdays to make sure you guys are getting the best training possible in order to make the most amount possible. So before we get started, a couple housekeeping things. Make sure obviously your video is turned on. If your video is not turned on and you have an actual reason that your manager knows about, that's good. If you're just off for some reason, make sure you turn the camera on. Otherwise, maybe you might hop into the break room. That might suit you a little better. Number two is also have a notepad ready to go. It's always important to take notes, but it's also super important to review the notes after you get them. Otherwise, it just goes right over your head, right? Ever been in class before in school? Your teacher says something so good, and you're like, wow, that was amazing. It really impacted me. And then you forget what they said 10 minutes later. That's why you have notes to look back and review, right? And the last thing is questions. I encourage questions. If you got questions, use the chat box to write them down. And also at the end, we'll have some time probably for some Q&A, so you can unmute and ask me some questions as well. Today's training is going to be a mix of a few things I've noticed this last week with our agency that we can get better on in terms of sales and closing and types of presentations. So I'm going to give you tips that I'm assuming a lot of people are not doing in the presentation that is an underutilized, undervalued property in the script. So today we're going to go over that as well. But before we get started, if you know a trainee, a coworker that's not here that should be here, send them a quick message before they miss out on all this good stuff. Because nothing's worse than getting asked, what did I miss? Right? You don't want to answer that stuff. Just show up, right? All right. So this past week, I'm gonna give you guys some numbers from our office. Typically, I only give the managers meetings, but you guys are getting special treatment today. So this past week that ended last week, so the last call it 8 days, we did almost the equal amount of presentations and referrals as we did in unions. And there's about like 55 referral presentations that were completed last week, and there's about 52 union presentations that were done last week by our office. And the closing percentage on referrals last week was 52%, and on unions was 20%. So the same amount of people were seen, but referrals closed more than double of what unions have done. I'm not saying unions are bad. I'm not saying referrals are, actually no, I am saying referrals are better, but there is improvement to do on unions, because with unions, in my opinion, the average might be like 15% on a company-wide scale of closing percentage, but it's very possible to get that number up to 30%, even 25% for union presentations. And today is going to be those tips on how to make union presentations, even McGruff technically count as that, how to make them increase in closing percentages. Because if you're starting, you don't have any referrals yet, and you want to get to referrals, you have to do a really good union presentation. You have to do a really good McGruff or Child Safe Kit or Wilkit presentation to get yourself doing referrals, right? And it's not about burning the leads just to get referrals and not make any sales. It's about still making sales on the people in front of you, but also expanding to the referrals afterwards. Does that make sense? Cool. Because I would rather everybody here do 5 response cards a week and then close 2 or 3 of them versus doing 5 and closing 1 of them. That way you're still making double the money you would normally make with the same amount of effort, same amount of work, same amount of everything. Make sense? Cool. All right. So the first thing, like I said, I want to talk about is a couple underutilized values of the presentation. So I'm going to pull up the union script here. I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to go over a couple areas that I find that are super helpful in terms of setting the tone for the presentation, but also setting the expectation with the client. So give me a thumbs up when you guys can see in 2 seconds. Can you guys see now? A little bit. Good. All right. So this is the union script. You get it from our website at aonational.com. Once my screen starts to load faster, there we go. I got too much stuff open. Okay. So every presentation has the same opening, hi, my name is Eyad, or hi, my name is whatever, right? That's all the same. that's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today is more so the setup with unions, because I've been doing a few unions this last couple of weeks, and I've realized a few things that I picked up that from before I used to do that kind of still exist today, which is the beauty of sales, because the sales never change no matter how much time has passed, right? That the psychology of sales is still the same. So in the setup, oh, you guys moved all over my screen here. So in the setup, when you say, now let me ask you, this is the first time you've heard about your benefits through your union or through the laborers union or whichever union they're part of, and they say no, or they say yes, right? The follow through is still the same. What's really important here is this question here. Do you get very involved with the union? Do you ever go to the meetings, read the newsletter, don't you? Okay, well, since you're not too involved lately, I'll back up a bit and fill you in what's going on. Now, I do see a lot of people kind of speed through that they don't find maybe a value in that at that right then and there. But this question here, like yesterday, for example, the guy I met with was with the union for 26 years or something, with the laborers union. And I asked him and his wife, do you guys get very involved with the union? You go to the meetings or anything? They're like, no. Like, okay. And then later on in the presentation, the wife asked me, he's like, do you know of other people in your union have gotten this? She's talking to her husband, like, didn't anybody else do this? Like, they weren't sure who we were and like why we were doing what we were doing. And it was so easy just to go back, like, hey, you know what? You were in the union for 26 years, right? But you never really went to the meetings. That's probably why you haven't really heard of us, but actually, let me show you something. And then what I do is I go to the letter. This is a different letter, but it's all the same stuff. I go to the letter, and then I'll highlight the amount of members in that union that are with us, just to help build a lot more credibility and remove that doubt that they had about, you know, why I'm here. Because sometimes throughout the presentation, usually with unions, they'll ask or they'll have that assumption or some doubt in their mind about what's about to happen in the presentation. Like, are you going to sell me something? Like, why am I the only one that's doing this? Like, the other people in my work do this as well. These questions go through their heads. But when you throw it back at them, because most of the time, that's referral, oops. So, and most of the time, members of the unions don't actually get involved with their union at all. Unless there's like a vote that has to do with their money or their contracts, they don't really go, right? And asking that simple question is so easy to go back to and actually fix and remove doubt and objections that you would get at the end, in the middle, you know, at random points. It's very easy to get those objections, but it's very easy to get rid of them before they come up, right? So always ask this question, but take your time setting up the presentation, because if you don't set it up properly and you kind of speed through things, you cut corners a little bit, thinking that it has no value. Usually those things that are come up like weeds at the end, where they just kind of grow out of the ground. And you're like, oh crap, I didn't see that there. And then now you're trying to de-weed it. You know what I mean? Trying to get rid of it when you're trying to cut the grass. You know what I'm saying, all right, bad analogy. So that's one of the first things I always focus on, is making sure they tell me usually no. So they usually tell me, even if they say yes. I do get very involved with the unions. I always say, you know what? Did you go to the meetings where they were talking about this? They'll say no. Perfect. And then you're right back to what I just said, right? Also, what also helps is in the letter up here. Oh, so every letter and every local has certain people that met with AIL, the PR department, and signed pretty much their members to do this. They all have certain individuals. Usually it's the president of the local or the entire union, a secretary, treasurer, a business manager, one of those people. For the UFCW, like 175 and 633 as an example, these individuals, Sean Haggerty, Kelly Tosato, and Karen Vaughn, these individuals are normally well known in the union. So you also asked, like, so when you're kind of building up credibility of the unions and us and AIL and everything, I always say, so Sean Haggerty, your president of the union, and also Kelly Tosato, the secretary treasurer, they set this up for you. Do you know them? They always say yes. They always like, oh yeah, I know them, I know of them, and I've met them or I've seen them, right? They know they're a real person, which again helps build up credibility with us being AIL trying to sell them insurance, Okay, so always, always, always throw that at them because they usually know them. The labor's union, most of the workers in the labor's union know the people who are leading their local. They know them personally as like a friend, a coworker, just someone they've met throughout their career. So when you say, I got like a name like Manuel Bastos, who's part of the 837 local, I think, for Leona. They all know him, which is great because it helps kind of ease their minds on the credibility. Does that make sense? So step one is always do a proper setup with unions. It's the same thing we do even Wilkins and McGruff. Now, Wilkins and McGruff, obviously there's no meetings or anything like that, but having that letter there is super important. Which brings me into the next thing here, which is reasons for being here. Now, how many of you, by show of hands, let me just go to gallery view here for a sec. By show of hands, actually shows them the letter when it says, now here's a copy of the letter. I'm flipping to keep your hands up. Some of you, yes, some of you know. A good half of you, I have your hands down. Now, if you're in training, you don't count. But for those that aren't in training that I know, if your hand's not up, you're missing out on a huge opportunity. So every time you say, now here's a copy of the letter you received from the union, share your screen and then show them the letter. And as the letter says, my job is to bring by your benefits and explain your options to you. Once we're done, there's a report card that we'll fill out together that goes back to the union, just so they know that I've come out, delivered your benefits, and done my job. Does that sound fair? Yes. Because this right here refreshes their memory on the card that they filled out, on the letter that they should have read if they didn't read it, or even if they did read it. But it also, again, builds the credibility. Because at first 5 minutes you with the client, they're thinking, hey, is this real? Is he going to try to sell me something? Or is this a scam? There's all these things going in their heads in the first 5 minutes. So how much easier is it for you to present to somebody when they're at ease of their doubts? Like, have you ever done a presentation where somebody was so tense? Like you can, they're like tension was just oozing from their head. You could tell they're like stressed because they're unsure if this is legit or not, if this is real, like if like they don't know what the heck's about to happen, what's going on. They even know why they're on Zoom, right? It puts them at ease when you show them the letter and you build that connection with them in the first 5 minutes, probably even less time. Okay, so make sure you're always showing the union letter. If you don't, do you guys know where to find it? I'm just going to assume you don't. I'm going to show you. All right, so what you got to do, where am I here? So you go to lead inbox, which log in on Planet, click on lead inbox. All right, then you go to read off letters on the right side here. And then you type in the group code, which is the SG number on the bottom of the lead. So for example, let me log in. Let me show you on my phone here. Or actually, never mind, it's not right in front of you. So if I click on who's here, our response. All right, let's click on this guy. Paulo, I'm saying that name right. Leona Local 837, right? You all seen this card? There's an SG number right there. It says SG03Q right up here. Now on your mobile app, it'll be below this card here. So once you like scroll down, it'll be below this card on the app. Okay. So every union has a specific SG number for the local. So you just copy that or you type it into where it says read off letters. And then you hit download. Oh, and you click on the drop down, click download letter, and then voila, it downloads it. So you should never not have a letter. It's the same thing with will kit letters, with McGruff, child safe. The only one that does not have a letter are POS and referrals. Everybody else has a letter. Okay. So once you have it, you click on it and voila, it's open. Right? You got Manuel Bastos, business manager, got Joseph Mancinelli, the president. All these people here were physically present with AIL at one point on Zoom or in person. And they heard our presentation. They heard about the freedom of choice. They heard about the AD&D, and they heard about everything. And they said, yes, I want this opportunity for all my members. So they sign with AIL. Cool. So that's where you get the letter. Now going back to the script here. Where is this script? Let's keep reloading on me. No, let me close some tabs here. It'll help. Cool. All right. So once you've done the reasons for being here, did I freeze? I'm good. Okay. Once you've shown them the letter, you keep the letter in front of them, by the way, as you're saying the next part of the script. And if you're in the position where you don't have it memorized, figure out a way to still be able to show them the letter and say the script, which I'm assuming you'll know how by now because you have such great training, right? So always have that script in front of them because it builds their credibility, puts them at ease mentally, and also helps you do a good presentation because you're not so tense anymore. Because with unions, they can get pretty intimidating sometimes, can't they? You're like an old union guy who's like just like tough on the outside. There's this big guy with a beard, looks like he belongs in a biker gang. You know, like those guys, usually the nicest people ever, but they're intimidating looking. And especially when they ask you like, what's this about? Or what are you doing here? You're trying to sell me something, right? Those things make you, the agent, a little bit, nervous, and it's okay. It's normal, right? And how you put yourself at ease and put them at ease is by doing exactly what I just said. Do a proper setup, let them know pretty much what we're about to do. And the reason for being here has to be good. That way, the rest of your presentation is smooth and you can confidently do the script without worrying about what they're thinking. Cool. All right. Everything else, normal, nothing crazy about it in terms of differentiating between presentations. The next biggest builder you have in terms of making a sale is the transition/qualification. This here is where a lot of people lose the second half of the presentation, where they get shut down, they get told, I don't want to hear anything, I just want the free stuff. This is where you lose a lot of potential sales if you're having that problem. That makes sense? So I don't know why you guys are still in gallery view. I forgot to put you guys on non-gallery view. There we go. Okay. So the transition qualification right here where it says, John and Mary, now like I said, letter that you received, there's a program that they set up for the members. Show the mandatory read-off letter right there. Now, I'm going to assume the ones that have not shown the letter in the beginning probably don't show this letter either. But for those that do show the letter in the beginning, do you guys show the mandatory read-off letter? Are you guys showing them that second part of the letter? Or are you guys skipping that because that's what you were shown, or you believe it's just too boring or whatever? Okay. If you're like me, you probably thought it was too long and boring and just didn't want to do it. Don't make an Eyad mistake. All right, do it correctly. So when it says show the mandatory read-off letter, you just go to the second page right here. And the good news is with every union, they're all written the same exact way, same words. The only thing that's different is the name of the union and how much millions of dollars in benefits have been paid out. That's the only difference part. Everything else is the exact same. So the more you read this, the more you're able to like memorize it, and you can just say it with ease. So when you show them that, you don't read it right then and there at all. You just kind of show them at this point, right? And then it says, in fact, this is the Labor Advisory Board, which leads me to my next question. Are you guys showing the Labor Advisory Board, right? With these guys? I believe it's updated. Mine's a little bit outdated, so forgive me. But this right here, again, helps build more credibility in what you're about to show. Because when you say this consists of the top 54 labor and association leaders, and they're important because what they do is that they advise us as to what the gaps are in your benefits and what benefits the members actually need. When you say that part, it puts all the pressure on whoever they may be. It's not you. It's not the company. It's not us, not AO. It's nobody. It's just they. When they hear they think their union. They think all these top union locals. And especially if they're part of a union that's on here, like a labor's union or the Teamsters or any one of those, it helps them build more credibility, but also they're going to be more interested and eager to listen to what you're about to say because they did it for them. You're just a messenger at that point. Okay. So going back to the script, you say this part every single time. Even in a referral presentation where there is no mandatory read-off letter, you still show the labor advisory board. Still show that group of people, because in the beginning of any presentation, we say we're part of it. We ourselves have been working with major unions in North America. We work with all of them on the benefits and their insurances. We say that in the beginning. So when you get to this part, you want to remind them how we work with the unions, especially if they're not part of a union. You want to make sure that you are reminding them that just because you're not, these are the guys that have done this for all the members. They know what you have and what you need. Okay, because this is right there. They're important because what they do is they help advise and make recommendations as to what the gaps are in your benefits and what benefits you actually need. And again, don't rush through this. Certain parts of the script you don't want to rush through. Like the vision card, no one's going to care if you rush through that, I mean, in all honesty, right? But parts like this, the transition, we're transitioning from free to sale, it has to, as a transition properly, right? And the reason they were chosen to the programs, right? All these things here, you have to make sure you're saying that and go from there. Now, you don't have to read the letter anymore based on what I'm reading, right? But my my wiring in my brain from when I first started, we were always taught to read this letter to the members, because what it does, it actually helps set up what you're about to do in the next like 10 minutes. And it tells them, hey, this is all voluntary. This many people have used are with us. This as much money has been paid out to them for the AD&D. Some extra good stuff about us. And it says, now please listen to me. I'm going to talk to you about life insurance. So go ahead and listen. And then at the end, we're going to fill out a report card together. I would be like, okay, cool. Right. It kind of takes some pressure off of them of being forced to buy something, but they're okay with listening and hearing you out versus having to think that they have to buy something, right? It's like a forced presentation per se. Right. And then when you get to here, then at that point, there's no more like letters to look at, no more labor advisory board. Then it becomes the second half, like any second half of any presentation. But it's super important to utilize the letters from their union and also the people that set it up and the labor advisory board to help rebuild the credibility. Because keep in mind, from the first hello to the transition, there's a bit of a gap in terms of the unions, right? It has to do with AD&D to like referrals. We're not talking about the unions anymore at that point, right? So you want to remind them again of the transition, and this is what we're about to do in the next half. So that way they don't have to like leave. They don't feel like, oh, I don't know, there was more. I didn't know you would talk to me about insurance. Well, I wasn't prepared to buy nothing. Like all these minor objections that you get sometimes is because the transition or even the setup didn't tell them that was going to happen. Or if you did, you didn't do it well, and then they didn't hear you. Does that make sense? Cool. All righty. The additional United States. So Doug, the SG number applies to every lead. States or Canada, doesn't matter. Every lead has an SG number on the bottom. So when you're getting a letter, just look for that number. And then everything else still the same in terms of like sales, right? You always want to make sure you're taking away the sale from them. And this opportunity right here at the transition and the qualification, that pretty much tells you to do that. So whenever somebody says, yes, I take prescriptions for something, or I've had an arrest in the past, you never want to make it feel like it's okay. Even if it is, you want to have like a little bit of a concerned look on your face or in your tone of voice that makes it sound like it might be a problem, because people want what they can't have. And we're all human. This is a natural way that we think. The more that we can have something, the more that we want it. So when you're asking them these questions and they say, yes, I take medication for diabetes or blood pressure or even asthma, whatever. And you think for asthma, geez, okay, how long have you had that for? Have you had any troubles with that in the past? Have you been in the hospital for it? How many different medications are you on for it? Right? Ask questions pertaining to like the problem, quote unquote. So that way they have some doubt in their minds that, hey, oh crap, I might not be able to get this. because that's how you want them to feel all the way up until the end. Because they want it, but they think they can't get it. But when you tell them at the end, hey, you know what? Let's see if you can even qualify. AI only needs 8 weeks to think about you, but which option works best for you? And then they'll pick one, and then they'll feel good because you're going to build a confidence back into them, letting them know, hey, I want to take care of you. I'm going to do my best to make sure you get this coverage. And that way they feel good at the end, and they keep the program. Because trust me, people that think they have it the whole time are the ones that usually are okay to let it go later, because they think, you know what, I can supply it somewhere else and get it. But if you tell them, hey, this might be a problem, like you'll have a better opportunity, right? Same thing with arrests. Arrests are usually an easy one, because arrests are usually a bad thing, right? So people have been arrested in the past, whether it's like drug, felony, DUI, whatever it is. Ask them the same questions. How long ago was that? Did you have, like, what was the specific charge? Were you in jail at one point, or was it just, did you go to court? Like, well, ask them about it. And then the more they talk about it, the less secure they feel about getting this program. Does that make sense, right? Don't put a spotlight on it by any means. Don't talk about it for 10 minutes. Not what I'm saying. It's like a brief, like, tangent for like 10, 20 seconds. And then you just go back into the script, because you want to plant the seed of doubt in their minds a little bit before you move on to the next part. That way, when you go over this bad boy here, the Hour Power Pro, when it decides to load, you won't have the objection of, what are we filling out? Or I don't know what we're doing, or all these things. Does that make sense? Cool. Because last week when I did objection training, I said the best way to handle objections is not to get them. And this is how you like do your best to minimize those objections. And then Hour Power, all the same, all the stuff, great, done. And then you get all the way to, actually, and by the way, here, when you get to the close, where is it? Right here. When you get to the D2, I'll explain what your job is. When you say things like, it comes out of your own checking account, that way when you change jobs or retire, you never have to worry about losing your insurance benefits, because under your control, not your employers or the union. Pretty nice, huh? You always want to make sure that you get the yes from especially from union members from this side here, because when you say it's under your control, not your boss, pretty much, or your union, pretty nice, huh? Get them to say yes, and then reassure you that they've been listening to what you've been saying, but also that they agree that this is a pretty good benefit. Get this right here. I do see agents, tenured or not, just kind of rushing this question and not getting that yes from them. They just kind of say, pretty nice, huh? And they continue. You want to get them to acknowledge the yes. Now you want to do that with every question you ask, but if you were to like miss a couple, so somewhere back in the script that doesn't really have too much of a value, that could be overlooked. But this, don't miss this one, and make sure you get that yes, because again, it helps you set that yes coming up in like 2 minutes from this part. Then the most important question that you want to ask, same thing, who did you want the money to go to? Don't give them advice on who should go to. Don't be technical about who we should go to. Just tell them to tell you who's going to go to. That's it. What I mean by that is, for example, I've seen in my past when the agent would ask, who do you want the money to go to? And the client would say, oh, to go to the kids. And then the agent would proceed to say, actually, if it goes to the kids before they're 18, they won't be able to get it. It has to go into a trust, and then all this technical information. They don't need to know that at this point. It's going to go to the kids eventually. Just put down the kids. It's all good. Put down the name of the one kid if they have one kid. And then that way you just continue the emotion of the sale into the close. Because if you go off on a tangent talking about random technical difficulties, pretty much, their mind is going to that, and they're not, and their emotion from the sale is going away. So you want to keep them on that same path to the sale. Okay. Be careful and falling into the trap of technical information. Nobody wants to know that at this point. You don't even want to say it at that point. It's just it's boring. Who wants to say that, right? And then the close is very straightforward. I love saying the close. That was my favorite part of the whole presentation, because I'm about to finish. I'm tired. I need some water at this point. You know what I mean? Like, the close is good, but the close is super important to do this part here. Sit back in chair and relax. How many of you are doing this when you're talking like, yo, which option do you want to go with? Right? As like the whole point of the sit back and relax is the whole presentation has been, in their face, exciting, and energetic, like, and also empathetic as well. But when you get to the close, it has to be the opposite. You gotta let people take the lock off your chair, rock back a little bit, put one leg over the other, just relax, and then say the close. Because when you have a calm demeanor in the close, they will be calm as well. If you're way too excited at the close, they're going to be overwhelmed with information, and then they're gonna like, oh, I can't decide right now. I have to talk to someone. I got to do this. I got to do that, and then what ends up happening is you don't get a close. Same thing is if you're very over the table, very loud, it does put them in a different mindset for the sale. It puts them in a position that they have to think more. They're overwhelmed with information pretty much majority of the time. Not that it's even an actual thing. It's just that there's so much energy, they don't know how to process it. So you sit back and relax, you calm down, you lower your tone a little bit, and then see the close, you'll have a much better response from them because they're going to mirror you, right? And you're supposed to mirror them too. So it should be like a harmonious mirror of a relaxed person. Cool. And then, yeah, and that's pretty much it when it comes to the close. Be calm, relaxed, say the close, and then they have a question, answer it, reclose. They got an objection, follow the steps I talked about last week, reclose, and then you are pretty much good to go, right? So that's kind of the one area I want to talk about, which is unions and closing, because everybody should get a higher, wherever you're at with union presentations, there's always room to get better. Our office overall last week has a 38% closing ratio, which is pretty good. It's pretty high for any office really, but a lot of that's coming from referrals and from POS. So if we can take unions from 20% that we're at to about 25% or even 30%, it'll push us all to make a lot more money than we're making now. You'll probably make a 30-40% more income just by following a few simple steps in the script. And what also helps, by the way, is I won't say memorizing it, but get very familiar with what's coming next. So that way it just comes out smooth, relaxed, and confident, and nobody's batting an eye. All right. The next thing we'll talk about is your ALP per sale. Let me stop sharing my screen here. But does everything make sense so far? Do you guys have questions on what I've talked about so far before I go into the next part? Does that make sense? Cool. Speak now, forever hold your peace. You want to hold your peace, go talk to someone else. I'm just kidding. All right. So ALP per sale has to do with literally how much money you make from every sale that you make. And it's about doing the same amount of work that John Smith to my right is doing and that I'm doing. We're doing the same amount of work. But how could he be making more money than me and I'm making less? You know what I mean? Like, how's that even possible? It has to do with the ALP per sale. So the next topic is we'll talk exactly about that and how to increase it and do it better. Because right now we hover as an office between like $800 a sale to $1,200, yeah, like $1,300 a sale. Is a pretty big gap. And a good ALP per sale, like as per Rick's recipe, is $1,200 a sale. That's good. Anything higher than that is even better. There's other offices, their ALP per sale are like $1,700, $2,000, but they're also in a market that their minimum wage or their average income is like $40-50 an hour. So they kind of have an upper hand against us, right? In Ontario, even I know Alberta does have a higher income wage over there. But speaking as a general purpose for everybody, because we have people now in the US and in Canada, so I can't say Ontario anymore. Like, this is just an us problem. But as an office, if we're averaging like 1,000 per sale, there's room for improvement. So the first thing to increase your ALP per sale is to make sure that you're following the hour power program in the script to the T by showing them their proper 2 hours and not being afraid to show a big program. So when I was new, I was terrified to show anything over $100, just terrified, because I was 18 And I said to myself, you know what? I can't afford $100 a month right now myself. There's no way they can. That's what I said. That was my reasoning. How dumb is it? That sounds pretty dumb, right? But 3 months into my field career, my manager at the time said, just show a big program, just show it. Don't prejudge it, just show it. I said, okay. And believe it or not, the first couple I showed it to, they were in their mid 60s. The guy had just retired. And I showed $210 a month or something. That's option number one. And he just said, we'll go with that. That was it. That's all it took for me to believe that, hey, you know what? I've been wrong for so long that I prejudged. Like, even though their circumstances might be different than mine, or they live in a house that's not the nicest or the cleanest, doesn't mean they can't afford it. So I changed my mind on prejudging. So number one, prejudging is a killer in sales. Don't prejudge. Don't pull an Eyad. All right, always show big programs. So when I'm talking about the hour power program, show 2 hours every time if they're working full time. If you're not doing it, why? Just do it. It's not about them getting the 2 hour program. It's about them seeing it, building enough value from it, believing in it, and then down closing from there. That way you still keep a high LP per sale, because the perception of money is still the same no matter how much it is. Whether you're showing $100 a month as option one and then going from 100 to 60 to 40 is the same perception of money when you show them 350, 220 or something, and then 180. It's the same perception of money. So when you think it's too much, it's wrong. It's not. It might be to them. Who cares? It's not the point. The point is they believe the value, they see it, they love it, and then you're gonna work together on a program and a price that they can afford. That's number one on how to increase your ALP per sale. If you're not doing that, do it. If they're part-timers, show them their 1 hour. It's all good. Nothing wrong with that. If they're on I won't say welfare, but like disability, like any government income support like that, those ones are special case scenarios, I would say. Obviously, make sure they can qualify and sell them properly, but find out what they make in a month and just multiply that by 5%. And then use that, divide, and then do some math and figure out the hourly wage from there. If they are laid off, mat leave, anything with not really making a full-time income, just show them the 1 hour. If they're making $50 an hour, because he's an electrician or she's an accountant or something, still show them their 2 hours. Don't think $50 an hour is crazy. Again, it's about being a really good salesperson is not being scared to show a big program, but also knowing how to show a big program. The people that make like say 200 grand a year household wise or something, $400 or $500 a month isn't really a dent. Does that make sense? Do you guys see what I'm saying? Okay. And plus, if it's a big program, great. ALP's really high. All right. So number one, always show the 2 hours. 2 hours, no matter what. And then do it correctly. And when you're going over the script, if you're not saying they're going to allow you to set aside between $20 to $100 a week, if you're not saying that, slowly, not slowly, but like enunciating it properly, just kind of like glancing over it because it sounds scary, like $100 a week, you're doing yourself a disservice. Just say they're going to allow you to set aside between $20 to $100 a week. And they understand that every family has a different situation, have a different hourly wage. Well, what I'm obligated to do, yada, yada, yada. Because again, you're throwing it at them, saying it could be this much, but I'm going to take it back and say, hey, you know what? You still have to qualify, and my job is just to show you. So that way there's no pressure. They're much more at ease again. And then you're confident to continue forward because you're not intimidated by them or by the number. Cool. So we say, how much do you make an hour? Great. I'm going to show you what setting aside. John, your 2 hours, and then Mary, your 2 hours. And then you're good to go. What is your question, Amy? Let me pull up the chat box here. I find that when you show the full 2 hours, they fall in love with how much coverage they get. They want to cut it down because they see the price decrease. It's good to be abuser. So Zena Rose, yes, that is how you want them to look at it. But people will still get the program as long as you down close properly and let them know, hey, in the future you can always upgrade. That way they don't feel like they missed out, right? And then Amy, if their 2 hours is more than $100, do you show $100 per week or 2 hours per week? So if they're 2 hours more than $100, do we show $100 per week? Yeah. So, I mean, most of the time, you're not going to find somebody who is making more than $100 for 2 hours per week per person. It's very, very rare. I think it happened to me like once or twice. But $100 is kind of like the limit. You want to kind of stay within that or around it. Like if the wife makes, $30 an hour and the husband makes, like $35 an hour, call it. Together, that's over $100 a week. You put 2 hours each, right? Still go ahead and show that and then down close. Like if you ask Serge, if you ask like Sean Merritt, if you ask any of these big ALP dudes, they all show their 2 hours no matter what it is, because they know how to down close and take them for a ride and then land on a good number. And a lot of times they usually pick the big number. I don't know what they're saying, but they're saying something good, right? So don't be afraid to show big programs, because again, it's about controlling the narrative and controlling their emotion on how they perceive what you're showing them. Because if you show such good value what you're selling, the price is second on the list, not the first thing. If it's the first thing, you're selling it wrong. Cool. So once you've done the Hour Power program, the rest is all sunshine and rainbows. Obviously, create a good program in the Hour Power, something that makes sense to their life, like for their burial, the cremation, for their paycheck protection, the kids are covered. Like make sure you actually customize the plan that they would benefit from, not just a generic 30 for you, and 2 years of paycheck, and everybody's happy. Like if they have a bunch of young kids, paycheck protection usually is a lot more valuable than the funeral, because they're like, all right, like that makes a lot of sense, right? Now, the second way to increase your ALP per sale is knowing how to properly down close and doing it smart. It's not about like going from $300 a month to $100 in the flip of a switch. That's very sad. Don't do that. Clients are just overwhelmed at that point. But also, you kind of gut the program. So how you want to down close properly is by asking them a couple of questions first before you actually down close the program. I'm not saying go from like, the 2 hours there's a double program and there's a basic program. Which way do you want to go? They're like, oh, this is too much money, blah, 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 blah. Okay, that's why there's a basic program. I'm not saying do that. Don't do that. You have to know like how to rebuttal the money problem. Because if a client's willing to tell you it's money on the get-go, they trust you. They're not embarrassed about the money anymore. Some clients, they tell you a bunch of other stuff, and then they tell you it's money later, because they're not most confident telling you, hey, you know what, I can't afford it. So with down closing properly, for example, when they say whatever number, this program is great, but it's just too much money. Say, hey, you know what, I'm so glad you told me that. Just tell them how glad you are. I don't know what's wrong with that, right? Tell them. Just say, I'm so glad you guys told me that. Because what it does to them when they hear a salesperson say, I'm so glad he told me this is too much money, immediately in their minds, they're like, oh, okay. He or she is not, really, really trying to push a sale down my throat. They're trying to get me to buy the highest amount, right? They care. When you show a client that you care, it's just much easier to convince them to go with something else. So first thing you tell them is, I'm so glad you guys told me that. And then after that, pause for a second, whatever. And the next thing you say is that my job is to make sure that, one, I explain this all to you as best as I could. Now, does this all make sense? You guys see how important this is to have for your family? Ask them that question. Get that yes. You want to get the yes. I'll give you a second to write it down. I'll take a sip. Also, if you don't have a drink while you're presenting, like water or something, non-alcoholic, obviously, because you have to be sober the whole time, right? You should, right? You need to have like a calm demeanor when you're presenting, that you're not just like rah in your face. It's, relax, take a drink here. Don't eat, obviously, but side note. Anyways, so when you get that first yes, saying, you know what, my job is the word, I can't speak anymore. After you say, I'm so glad you told me, my job today was just to make sure, one, I actually explain everything to you as best as I can. Now, did you guys see how important this is to have for your family? Does this all make sense? Yes. Yes. Good to yes. And then the second thing you ask them is the $300 a month or $60 a week, whatever the number is this just too much money? Yes. It is, the gas prices right now is too crazy, blah, 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 this, that, we're just getting back to work. We just had a baby. I just bought a car. All these like little excuses come out where they're trying to justify the reason that they can't, that is too much money. That's okay. It's let them speak, right? One of the most important rules of any objection handling or down closing is to listen. Listen to like understand them, not to respond back to them. Okay, cool. So when they say yes, it's too much money, I can't afford it, whatever. It's like, hey, that's exactly why you say that's exactly why they've set up the basic program for a situation just like this. And then at that point, what do they think? Like, oh, okay, cool. I'm not the only one. So I'm cool. I'm comparing myself to other people who are doing as best as other people. I'm okay with this, right? They have to feel better about themselves. And then they're more open to hearing about the next option. Because if you just go from like $300 a month, like, yeah, we can't afford 300. Okay, how about 200? Does that sound better? And then it becomes a what's the word? It looks like all you care about is the sale. That's what I'm trying to say. It cannot look, even if that is all you care about, they don't need to know that. Okay, they have to see a caring side of you, a compassionate side of you. That's what they have to see. Okay, so when you get them to agree that everything makes sense, they got no questions, and they see the value in it, and that is too much money. When you get them to agree to all of that, that is when you show them the next option. Sometimes you don't even need to show them the basic option. You just tell them, and you tell them what the basic option is. So the good news is the basic option still covers your funeral, still takes care of the kids. You still have the hospital plan, and you still get some paycheck protection in there as well. The best news is, instead of it being $300 a month or whatever per week, it's about $240. Is that a little bit better? So it's about $120 each. Does that make more sense? Like, is that more comfortable? They'll say yes. That is, we can swing that. Great. Grab your social, grab your driver license, so you can qualify. Is it if it's a no, say, hey, no worries. This is exactly why I'm here. Right? Just calm them down. It's all good. Okay, like, don't even feel bad. It's all good. That's how you want to like talk to them in a way. Don't say, hey, it's all good. Like, don't feel bad. Don't say that. I'm just saying, just down. Just bring it down. Say the line again. Which line? I'm talking a lot. That's
the reclose. Yeah, sorry.
Oh yeah. So when they say at 240 still not comfortable, like down close once, say, hey, it's all good. It's all good. That's exactly why I'm here. And then once they've like acknowledged that you just said that, like they understand what you just said, then you kind of go back and build up some value and then down close again. But the important thing with down closing is saying the right words that have a full aspect to it, like it's a full program. Your full funeral's paid for. You still get a full 2 years of paycheck, right? Make it sound like it's still a lot. It still covers them. They're not undercovered, undervalued, just because they're getting a less program. No one likes to get a cheap version of what's in front of them. No one likes that stuff. Right? If I were to sell you a Ferrari today for $10,000, you'd be like, I know the value of this. I'm not gonna buy whatever you're selling, right? It's the same thing with our program. You have to have the value up here as the price goes down. Because at any moment, if the value becomes here and the price comes up there in their minds, and that's how you're selling it, you're not going to keep the sale long term, but you might not even buy or not even buy, but you might even be, can't even talk, might not be able to sell the program. Here we go. Okay, I'm frustrated with my voice today. And then yeah, at that point, it's just getting the proper number that they can afford. What really helps is breaking it down per spouse. It makes it super easy. If it's $200 a month, hey, it's only $100 each. and you got 5 kids, make them pay. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing is, I do say that to the clients just to make them laugh. It's like, hey, you know what? Your 17-year-old, he's working, right? Great. Split it 3 ways. No, I'm just, and then I say, no, I'm just kidding. And then they're laughing a little bit. They're not as tense anymore. And then you kind of go back into, okay, so is 180 a little bit more comfortable, but $90 each. And if you really want to break it down even better, which is what I do all the time, is I break it down weekly per person. So you know what? It's only $20 a week each, which is less than, you know, a pizza a week, going out to the movies. You're probably already spending that money. I don't know if you guys do this, but you guys are already spending that money anyways. I think it's not even important. Just coming out of your account, you have no idea what it's for. You just spend it because you know what? Hey, I have it. So you're already doing, you're already doing this. Don't you think now it's better to prioritize it? Like, yeah. Okay, let's go and get that one. And they're good. So they're always spending that money anyways. Have that belief in you, in your mind, that $200 a month, they're already spending it on things that they don't need. Like they're going out, buying pizza every week or McDonald's or whatever, right? They're already blowing that money is what I'm saying. When you get them to like, you know, rationalize and like see and then prioritize the money now, like they're just kind of shifting that money they're already spending to something that is important, that they know they need, that they haven't taken care of yet. When they make that mental shift, then like, okay, that, yeah, you know what, you're right. We can afford it. And bam. And I can't tell you how many times I've gotten people to say yes to anything I've shown them when I say that part when I'm down closing. I'm like, you're already spending that money anyways. And then I give them examples, because throughout the presentation, I've gotten to know them a little bit in terms of what they do, what they like to do. Like, do they go out? What do they do for fun? Like these things. And then I kind of throw back not against them, that's a bad word to say, but I kind of throw it back in their face a little bit at the end by saying, hey, you know what, you're already doing this stuff, right? When you go out, watch the game every month, or you go on a camping trip, whatever it is, you're already spending that money. So you might as well spend it something correctly. And nobody, for the majority of people, nobody's living like penny to penny from their monthly paychecks to their expenditures. They usually have some extra money left over, no matter how much it is, that they are spending anyways. That's how they're living paycheck to paycheck. But you could just kind of transfer that wealth from their income to something more important, and get them to realize that if they're having that bit of a battle or a challenge in their heads on getting the program. So to increase your ALP per sale is not necessarily by upselling in the app. Yes, you should sell a waiver premium and head starts. That's not what we're talking about. It's more so that you want to keep the program high as you down close. Keep the value high, keep the price real good, above $100 a month. And that way people are still buying it. It has a lot of value and you're still getting a high ALP per sale. It's the same amount of work that me, you know, Mo, Magdalena, Savannah, anybody's going to do. The same amount of time, same presentation, same lead, same everything. There's no reason that you cannot make more money on the same people that the person next to you is making. There's no reason why you can't. And you have to have that belief. Like if you're making less, with the exception of POS, if you're making like less than 1,000 or 1,200 per sale, but you know they could have bought it, they just were being cheap a little bit. They wanted to like get the lowest basic program. It has to do with you down closing properly. Sometimes you're not telling them that, you know, there's not really a program less than $20 a week. If you just tell them that, they'll just go with, you know, $90 a month. If you tell people, hey, there is $30 a month, they'll go with that, which is dangerous. And then the last tip I'll give you in terms of retention is the people who are paying between $80 a month to about 125 have the highest retention of sales as a client. So when sales, fall off or they lapse in the future, or things happen in their life where they can't afford AIL anymore, they're usually below $80 or like well over $200. Those are the ones that usually, if they have a hiccup in their life, they're looking at their expenses and they start cutting it. And when they see American Income Life, $35 a month, here's what they're thinking. I don't know how much this is. Doesn't seem like a lot. Cancel. That's all they're thinking. But when they see $100, $120 a month from AIL, They're like, oh, no, it's important. It has value. It has my funeral, it has my kids, it has my cancer plan, it has this, it has that. They remember these things. You might remember the exact numbers, but they remember that it covers certain things. And that's how people keep the programs, even when times get tough. Cool. So we got like 4 minutes left. I don't think you have any questions. Do you have any questions at all? Speak now. Forever hold your peace. Because you guys are not going to hear from me for training the entire month of May. So just saying, if you need something, let me know.